Hello, I'm Tiffy McKay, and it's been a while. So I've been trying to figure out how I wanted to come back to YouTube for actually the past 2 years. Should I do a blend of the two? Should I make 2 separate channels to do my personal stuff and then another one for my business stuff? And the reality is that I am all of these things. And when I try and extract pieces of myself, you're only getting half a person. And more than anything, what I miss about YouTube was actually just talking to you guys. At the end of the day, it's the community. It's missing having a connection with the rest of you on the other side of the screen. That is what I miss the most. I miss having someone to talk to about anything and everything. And even when I was doing my vlog series, looking back, I really held back. I always held back. There were some things that I didn't think I could say. Some of them were for legal reasons, and some of them were just hiding how bad of a place I was in. And I also found out that doing daily vlogs didn't really work for me because there were some days where honestly there was nothing to talk about. But so I learned a lot from that, and right now all those videos are hidden because I want to focus on moving forward. Another thing that I struggled with was knowing where to start, because I've made videos and then just never uploaded them because it was 45 minutes long and I didn't even know what to cut out, what to keep in, what was important. How do you fill in the past 2 to 3 years of your life? Let me take you back to 2 years ago today. It's New Year's Eve, 2016. I have gotten my first fully completed manuscript back from my editor, Julie Tremblay, and it is the last week of 2016, and there is a massive scramble to meet the deadline that I wanted. I had wanted to publish my first book by Christmas of 2016, and this book was entitled For Love of Dying. It's a spiritual book about healing from loss and grief and moving on. And these are my own personal experiences. Almost everything in that book is just my experiences. And this was a book that I needed to write for myself because it was like I needed to heal before I could continue writing other things. So there I am, formatting away. I'm telling my friends that, I don't think I'm gonna make my deadline and I don't know what I'm gonna do. And like a rush, they just kind of all swooped in and things just started getting done insanely quickly. Within 1 week's time, I spent 2 days in Skyping with screen sharing with my friend Sam, creating the cover of the book, using images that I'd taken earlier during the year in preparation for the cover, because I saw in my mind what it was supposed to look like. I just needed someone to help me physically create it because I was so overwhelmed with everything going on. And my sister also stepped in. She was already my second editor. So she stepped in and reviewed the extra things that I had added in or changed. And then there was formatting after that. And then there was the approval process, making sure everything looked right. So there I am on New Year's Eve, literally going through the accepting process of my first publication, and trying like crazy to meet the deadline of 2016. And the reason for that was that we had so many people pass away that year that it was such a hard year. It was a hard year personally. For me, we ended the year with a funeral, and then we started the next year with more funerals. But more than anything, I didn't want to take those old emotions and drag them into 2017. I didn't want those to carry over into the next year. I wanted to finish this and be able to move on and feel that weight lifted off of my shoulders. So it was absolutely imperative that by the end of 2016, it was a terrible year. I didn't want that carrying over into the new year. So at 2 in the morning on New Year's Day, I was posting to all of my social media and all my friends and family, letting them know that the book was officially up. It went on sale on Amazon for paperback and e-readers for Kindle. and it's still up now, but I haven't had the guts to share it with people. My first book came out 2 years ago. The reality was that this is so close to my heart that I'm genuinely afraid to talk about it. In fact, one of the facets of my personality, of my whole life, is that I'm a very deep spiritual person, and I've been very, very hesitant to talk about spiritual things on YouTube. I've been avoiding it, and that's a huge part of who I am. And if I'm going that far out of my way to not talk about it, it probably means that I should talk about it. That's a part of myself that I'll eventually be sharing. When I finished working on that book, when I finished the actual process of publishing it, I did 3 book signings within like a month and a half, 2 months after the release, and then that was pretty much it. I think I did 1 more book signing in like December or so of the following year. After dealing with all those emotions about losing people and closing chapters in my life and getting the resolution that I needed, it felt like the right thing to do after that was to go complete 180 and start writing children's books. So fast forward to today, 2018, it's New Year's Eve again. I'm not pushing myself to try and hurry up and publish a book, overnight or even in the course of 1 week anymore, because I've learned the value of putting my all into it and taking my time. I've also learned the value of building up a better launch before you actually publish something so that you get a better turnout that day. And it has been a dream of mine to create a business. In the long run, the business that I'm going to be building is a multimedia production studio. But that business is really 4 separate businesses. I've broken them up. The simplest one, which is nowhere near as simple as I had imagined, and I've spent the last 2 years learning that, is book publication. It's something that I've already done. I already know how to do it. And even with the changes that have happened over the past 2 years, such as Create Space being completely run now by Amazon, you cannot even create a new account there anymore. You have to go through Amazon, which has completely changed the way things work. But I keep digging in and keep finding out more. There are so many options out there. So tonight I'll be working on finishing the campaign video for our first Indiegogo launch for our first book that is not written by me. We have a new author coming in, and that was another huge milestone for me, was contacting another YouTuber that has way more subscribers than me, and it felt very awkward, by the way, to do this, and kind of like there was just this immense amount of self-doubt before I went and did that. But I told myself I need to stop holding myself back. Literally the equivalent of taking the e-brake off and going downhill in your vehicle with just not using any brakes. Since you're going downhill, you're going faster and faster, getting more and more momentum, and that's what it's been like building this business. I have my own illustrator who's working on 3 books that I've written 2 years ago, which got rewritten like 10 different times, and we're working on those. But since they're not ready yet, I decided to reach out to Great Uchida, because I knew a couple years ago that he had mentioned that he had a children's book that he was working on. Then he didn't talk about it again, and I know from any writer's standpoint that just because you don't talk about it doesn't mean it's not sitting on the shelf somewhere waiting waiting to get worked on. So I knew that I was finally in a place where I could go and publish for other people, and at the time when I contacted him, I was completely willing to just tell him anything he wanted to know. If you want to just self-publish, you don't necessarily need me to do this. And I'll say that for anyone else too. If you want to go self-publish, go do it. There's nothing wrong with that. Some places I know that if you self-publish and then a publishing house finds your stuff and they're like, oh, you already published it, never mind. Not all publishing houses are like that. I know the traditional ones tend to be, but the smaller indie ones, they're much more likely to work with you. We're a small indie publishing company, and if somebody wants to do kind of like a hybrid sort of thing, there's nothing wrong with that. Doing some self-publishing, some traditional publishing, or picking one or the other, there's nothing wrong with any of these things. I think the biggest thing that people need to know about publishing and writing, and even as illustrators, there is so much that you're capable of, and there is so much right outside of the grasp of your fingertips. All you need to do is reach just a little bit to things that you've dreamed of come true. The question that I want to ask you guys for the end of this video is, what is it that you've been dreaming of that you don't think is possible? Something that you think it won't pay the bills, or that's not a real job. Just share with me. What is it that you really wish that you could do? Is it writing and publishing music? Is it writing a novel? Is it publishing the novel that you've got sitting on a shelf, or you don't know how to get it edited? Do you love art, but you don't think you're good enough to be paid for it? I want to form a community that we can talk about these things. I've spent decades learning that I could have so much more in my life than I ever dreamed possible. And I'm hoping that this journey that I'm taking will reveal that to you as an example in my life. And I want to challenge you also that if there's something that you dream of doing, that you should try and that you should go for it. And that even when you hit a wall, you should keep going and keep persisting, because you're an example to those around you too. And it might be a good example, or it may be a less than stellar example. And that is 100% within your hands to change. Even if all you're doing is getting all of your information for free from the internet, there is always a way, as long as you are determined enough to decide what you want and to go for it, and not let anything or anyone stop you. So come with me on this journey. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.